Before sunrise, when most of Kentucky was still asleep, a cargo aircraft accelerated down the runway carrying no passengers, no applause, no human noise, only weight, deadlines, and expectation. Flights like this are designed to be forgettable. They exist to move the world quietly so that people never have to think about them. UPS Airlines Flight 2976 was one of those flights. It was never meant to be remembered. Moments after takeoff, something happened that aviation engineers spend entire careers trying to make impossible. An engine, built to endure violent vibration, extreme heat, and thousands of cycles of stress, separated from the aircraft. Not failed, not shut down, detached. There's a strange comfort in aviation emergencies because they usually come with time. Time to diagnose, time to communicate, time to run checklists that have been refined by decades of past disasters. This event offered almost none of that. The separation didn't announce itself politely. It rewrote the physics of the aircraft in seconds. An airplane is not just something that flies. It is a balance of forces that constantly negotiate with gravity. Remove one engine at cruise altitude, and pilots are trained to adapt. Remove one engine immediately after takeoff, when the aircraft is heavy, slow, and close to the ground, and the margin for correction collapses. Radar data later showed an abrupt deviation, an angle the aircraft should never have reached at that height. It wasn't a dramatic spiral or a cinematic plunge. It was worse. It was a sudden loss of symmetry, the kind that tells pilots instantly that the aircraft they memorized no longer exists in the same form. Inside the cockpit were 3 crew members whose job was designed to be routine. Cargo crews don't receive public attention. Their work happens at night, on tight schedules, under relentless pressure to be on time. They fly more frequently than passenger crews, accumulate fatigue differently, and face emergencies without the emotional buffer of a cabin full of people behind them. Their responsibility is immense and invisible. There was no long Mayday call, no detailed explanation transmitted to air traffic control, just fragments, enough to confirm distress, not enough to change the outcome. On the ground, life continued as usual for a few seconds longer. This is where the story becomes uncomfortable. Most aviation disasters are contained within the aircraft. This one was not. When the plane came down, it crossed a boundary that rarely breaks, the boundary between controlled airspace and ordinary human life. Homes, roads, people who never consented to be part of an aviation statistic. 11 people on the ground were killed. Others were injured without ever seeing the aircraft until it was already too late. This is the kind of detail aviation safety reports struggle to communicate because it doesn't fit into neat categories. It wasn't just a crash, it was an intrusion. Investigators later faced a question that sounds simple and terrifying at the same time. How does an engine separate from an aircraft that passed inspection? The answer did not point to sabotage or dramatic negligence. It pointed to something far more unsettling: time. Metal fatigue does not announce itself. It grows quietly, invisibly beneath layers of compliance and certification. A microscopic crack can survive inspections, grow through repeated stress cycles, and remain undetected until the moment it decides to matter. Modern aircraft are designed under the assumption that no single failure should be catastrophic, but that assumption depends on failures happening within expected boundaries. When a component fails in a way that cascades faster than systems can respond, redundancy becomes theory rather than protection. Cargo aviation carries a unique paradox. Statistically, it is safe. Operationally, it is unforgiving. These aircraft fly more legs,
endure more takeoffs and landings, and operate during hours when human alertness is naturally lower. Their schedules reward consistency, not hesitation. Over time, small risks accumulate quietly. UPS Airlines Flight 2976 did not fail loudly over the years. It complied, it flew, it delivered, until it didn't. After the crash, shipments were rerouted within hours. Logistics networks adapted almost instantly. Packages arrived late, but they arrived. This is another uncomfortable truth. Systems are built to recover faster than people. Maintenance records were examined line by line. Inspection protocols were reviewed. Engineers debated whether the failure represented a rare anomaly or a warning hiding in plain sight. None of those discussions brought back the crew. None of them repaired the sudden absence felt by families on the ground. What makes this crash particularly disturbing is not just the loss of life, but the randomness of impact. Aviation safety is often framed as a bargain. You accept risk when you board a plane. The people on the ground never made that choice. The aircraft wasn't carrying human voices, but it carried consequences. It carried the reminder that even the most regulated machines are temporary victories over nature. Gravity does not negotiate. Materials age. Systems drift toward failure unless constantly pulled back. In the aftermath, the story faded quickly from public attention. There were no passengers with social media accounts, no viral final messages, no survivor interviews. Cargo crashes disappear faster because they lack faces the public can easily recognize. But for investigators, this crash left a quiet warning, not about fear, but about humility. Aviation safety advances not because disasters stop happening, but because each one exposes a blind spot that didn't exist yesterday. UPS Airlines Flight 2976 was not a story about recklessness. It was a story about limits. Limits of inspection, limits of prediction, limits of assuming yesterday's success guarantees tomorrow's safety. 3 crew members died performing a job meant to be uneventful. 11 people died, never knowing they were part of an aviation story at all. And somewhere, a delivery notification updated to delayed, unaware that delay was the smallest consequence of that morning. The aircraft is gone, the data remains, and within that data is a quiet truth aviation never escapes. Safety is not a destination. It is a continuous argument with reality, one that only ends when we stop paying attention.